Hi, everyone. This is Rich Berliner from CDIA, and I'm very happy to be here today with Mario Didio from Helium. And Mario, you have been on an interesting course of late. And first of all, congratulations are in order because you are now the CEO of Helium. And I wanted to congratulate you and talk a little bit about that. So, do me a favor. First of all, let's start out with your background a little bit, and then let's go into Helium and what you do. But talk to us about your travels in becoming CEO of Helium and what that all means.
Hey, Rich. Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. Yeah, I'll try to keep it short and sweet because I want to talk about mostly about helium. I don't like to talk about myself that much. But yeah, been in the telco industry for about 2 decades. Started on a startup world in Silicon Valley in 2013, and then moved into working within cable labs with cable operators and wireless operators around the world. And that's where I got a very strong interest in this idea of what I would call wireless convergence. We'll get to talk a little bit about that, which means how the focus of the future of networks should be on the user experience and less on the type of network that serves that user. And I kind of decided that that was going to be the thing that I wanted to build a career on because I really like the future vision of the unified connectivity experience, and that I joined Helium. And I joined Helium almost 4 years ago, and worked on developing this decentralized distributed model to create mobile coverage. And then just recently, I got the honor and the opportunity to step into this role while our original founders is in our chairman capacity. So again, big kudos for him to start a Helium, and I'm very excited about what's next for Helium.
Great. So,
So
so tell us about Helium and what you do and what the company does. And again, you've just what was split off was a an MVNO portion that went to Andrew Yang, but now Helium is sort of a pure play. So tell us about that.
yeah, so Helium, the simplest way to explain Helium is the most successful attempt so far into disrupt the infrastructure ownership model for telco. What does this mean? It means that traditionally, the way carriers have been developing network infrastructure is it's very vertical. Like they buy the asset, they buy the radios, they buy the tower, and then they it's a lot of capex and capital outlay.
Right.
And then over the years, they try to recoup that cost by, selling subscription plans and phone plans. The problem is that every time that with that model is that while it was a viable model 20, 30 years ago, over the years, every time a new G added to that standard 2G, 3G, 4G, and 5G, and now eventually 6G, the cost of that capital outlay is going up. On the other hand, we have instead mobile cell phone plans that they cannot following. They're not that elastic as a market. And so you have a gap that is started to form in the early, I would say, even as early as 2018, and now it's becoming more and more prominent between how much carriers are willing to pay in terms of capital outlay and how much they are able to charge for what they spend. So the model needs to change. And it's many people they assimilate this type of change similar to what happened into the cloud compute when companies used to have server rooms. They buy the server, they had to have someone that manages the servers, and there is capex and opex involved. And then they discover that they can utilize in many cases cloud computing to offload that work into someone else, and that's the AWS that has taken the world for quite a bit of a change in the past years.
So what you're
And
saying
so
is cost of capital and CapEx is going up, and the ability for them to charge customers because of things like Mint Mobile and others is going down. So therefore, the intersection of those two things is an opportunity for Helium. Is that about right?
that's right, because essentially what Helium does, it provides a way to shift the capex model in an opex model. Well, now you have a neutral host network, which is what Helium does. Helium aggregates Wi-Fi networks around US, Mexico, and very soon Brazil to to make it available to operator in a neutral host way to utilize as an OpEx model. And so the result is a lower cost to serve for the carriers and a better user experience for their customer. And this is like especially true in things like in building, in things like indoor connectivity,
Right.
which has been always a problem because of physics. You know, RF, cellular macro towers that have difficulty in penetrating buildings. So the user experience of people being served inside buildings from an outdoor cell tower is very poor. Historically, the industry has been trying to fix that, utilizing things like DAS system, distributed antenna system, and small cells. They're still applicable in some verticals, but for the majority of the building, it's just not a viable option anymore from a point of view of cost. And so I that's what Helium does, bringing in Wi-Fi specifically in this incarnation of Helium to provide a continuity of service for carriers when they traverse the building, going from an outdoor cell tower into an indoor Wi-Fi access point, and do that in a seamless way for the customer, so that they don't even notice that that's happening, and this is done with a much better cost structure for the carriers.
Right. So personally, I have no cell coverage in my house. I use my Wi-Fi indoors all the time. So it seems to me that correct me if this is wrong, but it seems like a smart um, retailer who has charging stations or use indoors might want to work with a carrier who says, I don't want to build another cell site. I want to work with Helium and I want to work on building a low cost way for them to be covered while they watch Netflix, while they're charging their vehicles or doing something in the store. So I want to be able to use this without going through a $500,000 or $1 million capex. Am I right with that?
That is correct. So, and that's what's happening to Helium. Helium now is present we have over 130,000 access points throughout the country. And this includes things like from small coffee shop or restaurants all the way to shopping malls and casino floors and even an airport. So, but the value prop is the same. Is this idea of someone makes available their infrastructure for carrier to load traffic on it, and I mean, there is a earning potential for that venue in doing
Ah,
so. And Helium is that company that aggregates all that capacity for the carriers, and it gives the carriers the tools to utilize that coverage with trust. That's a
right.
very important thing. Like we have been seeing Wi-Fi offload in the past. This is not the first rodeo around this, but what Helium is bringing is this concept of quality of service on this that makes carriers trust Wi-Fi and that type of like OpEx model more, and it's of course very valuable for the venue.
Right. So, in the news of late has been a company that's been launching satellites for a direct to cell coverage situation. We all know the name SpaceX, Starlink. And so it seems to me that they've announced recently that they want to put a whole bunch of femtocells all over the country in order to utilize the opportunity to have in building coverage and in in areas like big cities where they wouldn't necessarily be able to get a satellite coverage in there. It seems like that might be a natural to work with Helium in that score. Is that a crazy idea, or is that something that sounds legitimate?
No, it's not crazy at all, and it all stems from the stark reality of building a network. We all know that this country has been after a fourth carrier for a long time. The last one trying, we all see the result of that. Doing it in a traditional way, it's very expensive. Like I said at the beginning, and it's not viable. So the way it's very interesting to watch someone like SpaceX and Starlink, which clearly they have a consumer ambition to look at the way how to create coverage in a different way. So it's true that right now they only own about 65 megahertz of spectrum. There is a C-band coming next year, so they'll probably get more. But in general, you can tell from the words of Shotwell, their president, when they say we're going to deploy coverage as needed, that it did really feel like they were calling out the Helium model in
Interesting.
many ways, because it really felt because that's what it is about, right? 80% of mobile traffic is indoor, and Helium tends to gather connectivity where there is the density demand. And so, in a situation where satellite density increases, they want to throw 100,000 satellites up there, right? So we'll have a lot of density outdoor and potentially a lot of direct D2D, direct to device outdoor. You still have that indoor problem. And so the idea of a hanging femtocell, I think she refers to femtocell as a not as a specific cellular versus Wi-Fi, but this idea of much more hotspot, concentrated coverage
Right.
needed, it's very similar to what Helium does. And
Right.
so
So the
that's
average
why
person who has a cell phone doesn't care whether it's coming from a satellite,
that's
whether it's coming from a cell tower, or it's coming from a Wi-Fi hotspot.
that's
So
correct.
today, that the consumer simply wants their phone to work and work well. Is that about
That
right?
is correct. And that is, I think, at the end of the day, where I said the concept of wireless convergence, which is a very technical concept, but what drives me, what has always been driving me in this role, but even prior, is this idea that the customer does not care how he gets connected. And it just wants it to work. And that's, by the way, beyond being a philosophical argument, a vision statement is true. When I said at the beginning that the carriers can't raise prices and elasticity of the market, is because there is no such a thing as 5G plans. There is not going to be such a thing as a 6G plan. There's a plan. There's a
Right.
phone plan.
Right.
And it's like you want service. You don't want a specifically access technology. You're not buying a specific asset technology. Those are things of the past when there was like ISDN and all that stuff. Like, but in the future, I keep mentioning this, and interesting enough, Android is actually in some of the beta version they do that. Like the logos on the top right corner on your phone that shows LTE, 5G, Wi-Fi, the different like icons, they will all go away. They should go away. Like the people don't care about it as a satellite, as a macro tower, a femtocell, a small cell, a DAS
As long as
system,
my
which
phone
fly
works.
indoor. I want this to work.
Right.
And
Right.
this in the interest of the carrier to make that as the most viable way from an economic perspective. Now, what just one more thing, and the people that own real estate, they should be able to make that real estate more valuable, and they can make that more valuable to carriers so long there is a trust layer that makes carrier trusting that infrastructure, and then there is potential, to monetize as well. Why not? Those venues when possible.
Right. So leads me into a very important topic, and a thank you. You are the lead sponsor of our event coming up in Las Vegas on September 1st. And I understand you've hinted around a little that there could be some things that you'll be talking about at that event and subsequent to that. But first of all, thank you so much for being the lead sponsor. Third time you're with us for this. But at the end of the day, I'm really excited about what you guys might be talking about when you're there at the event and what you'll be announcing at that point in time. Is there something you want to kind of tease here, or should we just wait till September 1st when the time comes?
No, I think the only thing I would say is the following, is that um, we live in a time where especially with AI and all what's happening, everybody's talking about AI, and we're gonna talk a lot about AI into the during the conference. I know there's a lot of people and guest speaker, fantastic lineup, by the way. Kudos
Thank
to you
you.
and the organization. But I I think when you look at AI, one of the things that is also needs to be bear in mind is that this is changing dramatically the pattern, the way traffic patterns behave inside networks. And what I'm leading with that is that um, if you want to truly make usage of this like um, new way of doing connectivity, in which you have these connectivity layers between Wi-Fi and cellular and satellites all working together, there is going to be needed technology that carriers and venue owners they need to host in order to make that happen. And so one of the things that Helium has done is creating a series of tools, and yeah, we will talk more, that makes that simpler for both carriers and whoever has manages a user base to take advantage of that connectivity layer across different access. And I I think this is while some of the concept that we're talking about has been in the industry for a while. Like I said, Wi-Fi float has been for a while, even Passpoint has been a while, around for a while. It's It's the intelligence layer that you layer on top of it, and the easy on ramp to utilize those technologies. Those are the things the Helium is being working on very hard, and we are very excited to bring into market.
Interesting, because we wrote a story in our newsletter a couple of months back about he who owns that choice layer, that layer of which whether it's satellite or Wi-Fi or cellular that your phone chooses first is going to really have something in the future, because that's going to be a very important layer in this
Mhm.
all. So that's an interesting development for you, and I'm really pleased to get to hear about that when the time comes.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait. I
Yep,
mean, especially when it comes to like information in order to make those decisions. Historically, the device has been the center of all of that.
right.
But it's clear that if you're talking about a much bigger strategy and a much more comprehensive strategy for connectivity, now you're looking at time of the day and load on networks and things. There are information that is available both on the carrier hand as well as on the venue network controller center. So all that information needs to be carried into a place where those decisions can be taken in an efficient way for the end user experience.
Right. Well, I know you wanted to make this a short and sweet discussion here today with the podcast. And let's review really quickly. You're the lead sponsor of our event, September 1st, Las Vegas at Planet Hollywood. Anybody that would like to sign up, please go to www.cdiausa.com and sign up for the event. And second of all, you are now the CEO of Helium. Third of all, Helium is hot right now, and you guys are coming out with some things, and we'll be talking about that as we go forward. And Mario, thank you so much for being here today. I hope we covered all the things you wanted to talk about, but it sounds like you've got a really exciting time ahead of you, and I can't wait to see you in Vegas and talk more about this.
Oh, thank you, Rich. And again, we'll be in Vegas, myself and other people from the team. So can't wait to connect with anybody in the industry that is interested to learn about Helium and the things they are bringing to market. It's a very, I mean, like I mentioned this in other interview prior to this, is like it's a rare moment of dynamicity in the telco vertical because of some of because of what you just mentioned with SpaceX, but not just that in general. It's a very interesting dynamic moment that I think will bring a lot of changes in the way we interact with telecommunications. And we at Helium, we want to be at the center.
Little proverb says, "May you live in interesting times," and it sounds
Right.
like you are.
Exactly.
Great.
That's correct.
Mario, thank you so much for being here. We've been talking with Mario Didio from Helium. We'll see you on September 1st in Las Vegas. Rich Berliner from CDIA saying thanks for watching.
Thank you, Rich.